Believe me, ladies and gents, you are not prepared for this one. The streets of hip-hop are on fire, and Jim Jones, who once walked the streets of Harlem like a king, is now reportedly crying after receiving a bombshell that is so ridiculous and wild. You heard me correctly. Chrissy Lampkin, Jim's longtime companion and reality TV personality on Ride or Die, has been embroiled in the messiest scandal of the decade, which could make even Maury Povich yell, "You are not the father." Jim has learnt that Chrissy has been harboring a secret child all along. The most startling thing about this hip-hop is the betrayal, deceit, and chutzpah of these explosive new claims, which may or may not have been smuggled out of a courtroom by a shady intern with a terrible Wi-Fi connection. Treachery. But is this the last straw for the Dipset dynasty? More importantly, how did this even occur beneath Jim's nose? Stick around, grab some popcorn, and fasten your seatbelt, because what I'm about to tell you will make love and hip. This is the scandal of all scandals, and we're jumping right in. The Courtroom, which was meant to be a calm place to handle yet another celebrity drama, suddenly turns into the epicenter of the controversy as the cameras flash and the whispers turn to gasps. Jim Jones, Dipset royalty. Mr. We Fly High isn't flying at all right now, according to our extremely trustworthy, by which I mean completely dubious, sources close to the matter. This is the most shocking betrayal Harlem has ever witnessed. Jim has just fallen under the weight of a truth that no amount of street cred or ice swagger could protect him from. So what's got the rapper turned business magnate reportedly crying into his Louis Vuitton scarf? 2 words: Chrissy Lampkin. Yes, Chrissy, the woman who supported him through label fights and kept him down for decades. The lady whose loyalty was meant to be unrivaled. The woman who practically proposed to Jim on national television in what remains one of VH1's most stopped moments. Tour drama and enough reality show battles to make us appear weak, and yet here we are. Chrissy has been hiding the biggest secret. Not a side gig, not a dubious LLC, not even a burner Instagram account. According to reports from what can only be called the most tumultuous court session since Cardi B pleaded guilty to throwing shoes at dancers, discussing a full child, a whole human being that was purportedly kept secret from Jim, the world, and most likely even the producers of Love and Hip Hop. I know what you're thinking, but hold on. How does a man who once claimed to the caretaker who overheard everything while sweeping outside the courtroom, claimed that Jim was blindsided during testimony by alarming documents? Those in the know claim that despite having eyes and ears everywhere, they missed a whole baby-sized elephant in the room. For those of you who are too young or live in a bubble to recall the Dipset era, here is the backstory you must appreciate. Text message receipts, hold on to your wigs, and a purported paternity report that featured Chrissy's name all over it. What a crazy couple Jim and Chrissy have been. From Harlem block parties to Love and Hip Hop, they nearly created the model for being toxic, but they make it famous with their breakups, cosmetics, on again, off again turmoil, missed weddings, and matching. We assume that Cameron, also known as Killer Cam, the petty king of hip-hop, or the man who chose to put petrol on an already raging skip fire, had weathered all of the tattoos and public disputes that had fans yelling, "Just marry her already!" Cam allegedly entered the courtroom like a pink, mink-wearing Grim Reaper and produced the receipts for Chrissy's alleged betrayal in what witnesses called the most brutal courtroom clapback in reality TV history. Because, let's face it, if according to reports, Cameron said dramatically, bringing out an envelope as if he were at the Source Awards. "I'm about to reveal why my brother Jim has been walking around thinking he was in the room. And something messy is about to go down, Your Honor, living in a romantic fantasy while, in reality, he was the lead in a daytime soap opera, according to our unnamed legal insider." Kudos to the court sketch artist who revealed the truth. The evidence presented purports to demonstrate Chrissy's covert involvement with someone. The courtroom supposedly exploded, like it was the BET Awards, and someone said Beyoncé was pregnant again, and you could hear the gasps. This is not just some random chaotic rumor. A man years ago, and that relationship created a child Jim never knew existed. After a poor drop, Jim reportedly sank in his chair, took off his designer sunglasses, and murmured to his lawyer, "I can't believe this." The sound of his entire legacy, shattering like a cheap iPhone screen, was silenced. And who? For him, loyalty is more than just a phrase. It's his brand and his entire identity. He allegedly kept this type of devastating secret in order to have his most trusted partner, his ride or die. Could he be the man who built his reputation on loyalty, street code, and keeping it real? Simply put, it was character assassination in broad daylight, and if you think the courtroom was rocked, just think of how quickly the screenshots went viral online. Social media went crazy, with Twitter turning into a war zone, with memes, hashtags, and TikToks. Think pieces from phony relationship specialists who somehow earned a master's degree in dipset drama went viral overnight, and within hours, one Twitter user encapsulated the plot. Jim Jones discovers Chrissy has a secret child. Ironically, we were unaware that we required someone to call Mona Scott as soon as possible in 2024. At the same time, fans were occupied with calculating timings and calculating celebrity paternity. Was this before the show? According to sources, Jim vanished from public view during season 3. He cancelled all of his appearances, left a scheduled club hosting gig, and unfollowed Chrissy on Instagram. Let's face it, in 2024, unfollowing someone is like filing for divorce. In the meantime, Chrissy hasn't said a word, posted anything, or left a comment, which only increased the rumors. Because, as any competent fake news investigator knows, quiet guilt makes the narrative more compelling. Cameron, who is known for writing dodgy Instagram posts, has kept it strangely low-key for the time being. But if history is any guide, Jim is simply stockpiling the next round of petty things for the ideal moment. Now, everyone is left wondering, how in the world could Jim not know? How can a man surrounded by cameras, friends, and haters miss a secret this important? Is this the judge slapped the gavel down and said sharply, "We are adjourned until tomorrow morning. Further evidence and witness testimonies will be presented." Was this the final betrayal, or is there more to this narrative than we've been told, presented? As photographers and journalists rushed the courthouse steps like untamed beasts, the throng burst into astonished conversation, and this is where things take a much darker turn. By sunrise, the courthouse had transformed into the town's most exciting circus, with reporters, bloggers, TikTok detectives, and every shade gossip page imaginable camped up like sneakerheads, anticipating a new Jordan release. The morning following was everything but peaceful. Inside the courthouse, tensions were at an all-time high. Jim Jones entered with his legal team, a huge hoodie pulled over his head, sunglasses on, and a countenance that said, "I didn't wake up for this, Chrissy." It was hectic and undoubtedly messy, just how the internet likes it. The judge urged the courtroom to maintain composure and warned that any outbursts would not be tolerated. Cameron, however, arrived fashionably late, wearing a bright pink tracksuit and what could only be characterized as "I told you so" enthusiasm be accepted, which obviously meant nothing at all because the atmosphere was too chaotic, gossipy, and scandalous for anyone to act in that way. Then came the next shocking revelation. The prosecution, supported by unnamed sources who allegedly included a resentful former friend and someone who described Exhibit A, which purportedly contained leaked private text communications between Chrissy and a man only identified in court filings as Mr. X, was produced by a hairstylist who overheard everything as undeniable proof of Chrissy's alleged double life. Around the time Jim and Chrissy were purportedly working on wedding plans, Chrissy allegedly reignited an old flame. The messages were full of cryptic flirtations, mention of secret meetings, and the now famous remark that sent Twitter into a tailspin, "Can't know yet." The entire courtroom gasped, and even Cameron, who had been scrolling through his phone for the majority of the morning as if he was utterly bored, raised an eyebrow and said, "Jim?" Jim reportedly froze, according to witnesses, and appeared to have his attorneys urgently whispered that he had just been struck by a sledgehammer of betrayal, as the prosecution proceeded to reveal their mountain of evidence. Next came the purported bank records, which claimed that Chrissy had been sending substantial amounts of money each month to a private trust established in a minor's name. The prosecution claimed that Chrissy was providing financial support for a kid Jim was unaware of, while the defense contended that the payments were for private family affairs and charitable contributions. Social media was already in full swing, and conspiracy theorists on TikTok put together dates, compared previous Love and hip-hop episodes, discovered strange gaps in Chrissy's Instagram posts, and even compared Mr. X's newborn photos in an attempt to demonstrate similarities. One viral TikTok boldly said, "Look at that nose, it's genetics, babe." The comments were a complete mess, with over 2 million views in less than 8 hours. As the circus raged online, Jim fans started sharing side-by-side pictures of Jim from years ago, and now with phrases like, "This man has aged 15 years overnight. Prayers up." Meanwhile, Cameron remained silent, sending no tweets or postings, and even avoiding a passive-aggressive mood meme. Never wanting to squander a good time for trash, he shared a boomerang of himself drinking tea with the comment, "Patience is everything." However, back in court, things were going to get even wilder when the next witness, a former acquaintance of the courtroom, erupted in applause as Chrissy, who was protected by Jane Doe status, testified that she had reportedly confided in her years prior about an accident that resulted in a kid, and that she had no intention of ever telling Jim about it. The judge then banged the gavel twice, did not assist Jane Doe, who continued by accusing Chrissy of justifying the secrecy by stating, "I couldn't risk him finding out, it would ruin everything." Jane said that Chrissy was afraid the truth would be revealed. Jim allegedly looked up and stared straight ahead without blinking his face for the first time since the incident broke out, demonstrating not just their connection, but also their rich reality TV agreements, endorsements, and public image as the ultimate hip-hop power couple. Stated that the rumors outside the courtroom had escalated into a full-scale media frenzy, with tabloids screaming headlines and the baby bombshell that finally revealed Dipset Chrissy's darkest secret. This wasn't just treachery, it was ruin. Presented Jim Jones's famous "We Fly High" video, with the tagline changed to "We Cry High." Another viral hit featured Mona Scott Young, with Devil Horns purportedly planning how to turn this into 10 new Love and Hip songs. Hop series fans were thrilled, but as the audience laughed, the defense, visibly frightened, claimed that none of the evidence proved anything conclusively, that the supposed texts were taken out of context, and that the money were philanthropic family support. The judge declared that more witnesses would be heard the next day, possibly including Mr. X himself. The courtroom was electrified, and reporters were frantically making notes. The witness testimony was untrustworthy hearsay from a former buddy who had turned into an opportunist. As the court adjourned, Jim stood slowly, pulled the hood back over his head, and walked out without saying anything. Courtroom sketch artists were documenting every dramatic reaction, while supporters outside were live streaming in the hopes of catching even a shadow of Jim or Chrissy walking in or out. The world waited to see whether Mr. X would eventually come forward and tell the truth, if Chrissy would finally speak up, if Jim would even be able to go past this, and if Cameron still followed after, grinning as though he already knew he had one more trick up his sleeve. Fans gathered outside with placards that read, "Jim, blink twice if you're okay." Another cruelly stated, "Chrissy had a whole side quest, and Jim didn't." The media nicknamed the court date Judgment Day for Dipset, even received the side mission notification. Then, as though the drama gods were planning the final season finale, everyone's phones flashed with the unconfirmed news that Mr. X was en route to attest. The streets of New York went completely crazy. According to reports, helicopters were already in the air, security was doubled, and the internet did what it does best. It made predictions, made outrageous allegations, created phony screenshots, and of course, as the sun sank over New York City, the issue that lingered in everyone's mind was whether Jim Jones would lose not only his relationship, but also his entire legacy, which the fans didn't have. Memes, the countdown had begun, and day 3 of the trial promised to be the most dramatic yet. The world held its breath, wondering what would happen next. The controversy wasn't calming down. In fact, it was going to blow up again, and day 3 was just hours away. As the cameras, reporters, fans, and bogus experts got ready to flood the courts once more, even the pavement seemed to know what was coming. As the sun rose over Manhattan, crowds had already gathered outside the courtroom at daybreak. Some individuals had missed work, and others had flown in from neighboring states. Influencers were live broadcasting from the steps. On day 3 of the trial, which had been formally called the day Mr. Her X appears, talkers were rehearsing their surprised facial reactions, while television vans lined the block. Then, an unmarked black SUV drew up, and the door opened out of a tall, sharply dressed man. The crowd gasped when they saw the man in the navy suit and dark spectacles. Could this be the enigmatic Mr. X? The reporters frantically pushed microphones at him, but he said nothing, just straightened his tie and entered the building. Jim Jones was sitting quietly in the courtroom with his attorneys at his sides. His hoodie was gone, and his face was bare and hollow. This was not the Harlem hustler we had known. Rather, he was a guy watching his world fall apart as Cameron walked in. On the last day of evidence, Mr. X mounted the stand, and the gallery leaned forward as if they were there. He was wearing a Dipset varsity jacket and had an expression that said, "I live for this mess." The judge then arrived and asked for silence. Mr. X, who was set to testify in a murder trial, acknowledged that he had known Chrissy for years and that their friendship had previously been more than simply a friendship. The gasps came exactly as he said, that many years ago, during a brief but passionate affair, he claimed that Chrissy had been pregnant and secretly given birth, and that she insisted Jim never know because she was afraid that telling him would ruin their relationship and her profession. Mr. X added that he had respected. The courtroom sat in stunned silence. as Jim Jones looked up for the first time in hours, and his eyes focused on the guy who claimed to be the child's father, despite her desires, but always remaining a part of the child's life from a distance. Mr. X then disclosed what sent Twitter into a tailspin. He said that he and Chrissy had signed a private legal agreement to keep his own fiancée secret, saying, in a whisper, "I gave her everything. Everything was concealed, including Chrissy's monthly child support payments." The court reportedly had a copy of the document, which was so secret that even Jim's own lawyers were unaware of its existence. When the news emerged, the throng outside erupted, and hashtags burst her Jim Jones trial, or memes featuring Chris's secret child, Mr. X, went viral in a matter of seconds. One image included Jim Jones's Dipset chain, altered with the words, "trust issues," rather than diplomats. Meanwhile, the defense rushed to protest, claiming the documents were not verified, was looking for fame, and that what he had said was a well-crafted falsehood intended to ruin a well-known marriage. But by this point, the damage had been done. The court of public opinion had already issued its decision, and Jim fled the building, which was guarded during lunch. As hearings began, the judge addressed the elephant in the room. While this matter was still pending, photographers caught the moment when his head was down, shoulders stooped, and Chrissy was nowhere to be seen. Cameron, on the other hand, emerged eating a hot dog and waving to admirers like he was walking a red carpet. Was officially still a civil battle, but the startling evidence that was provided caught the interest of federal and state authorities, and rumors of fraud and money laundering began to circulate like vultures. Several record labels started to withdraw from ongoing agreements with Jim. Sponsors discreetly withdrew contracts. Reality TV producers discussed whether to cancel or intensify the next season. The fallout was occurring in real time by the end of the day. Jim's lawyer asked for an immediate postponement to examine the fresh evidence and formulate a defense against possible criminal exposure. The judge approved the motion, stating that the court would meet again in 2 weeks. But the headlines couldn't wait. Jim Jones was the hip-hop industry's downfall. As Jim plunges into a professional crisis, social media naturally had its own interpretation of the incident. A viral TikTok labeled Jim the next Tristan Thompson of hip-hop, and a Twitter thread speculated on whether Chrissy had been playing the long game for years. Some fans demanded forgiveness, while others said Jim was done. As the courtroom cleared, Jim reportedly stood for a few seconds before leaving by himself. Cameron allegedly walked by and muttered, "Told you," under his breath. Nobody knows if Jim heard it or not, and then the most spectacular courtroom drama in recent hip-hop history came to a stop for the time being. But the aftershocks, they had only just started. The next morning, the Dipset merchandise Chrissy finally broke her silence when the business abruptly went offline, tweeting a strange black square without a statement that only stoked rumors about whether it was an apology, a power move, or a farewell. Meanwhile, Cameron hosted He concluded the stream with a final remark. "At least I don't have to find out on TMZ legal experts weighed in," as he nonchalantly sipped tea while recapping the entire drama for his fans in a surprise Instagram live video titled "Petty Wins." Again, every blogger, podcaster, and couch detective had a hunch, and the story dominated headlines for weeks. Could Chrissy be charged with fraud? Could Jim sue for emotional damages? Would Mr. X now seek custody? As of right now, there are no definitive answers, and Chrissy is still mute. I pondered whether Jim and Chrissy would get back together and rebuild their business, or whether this would forever shatter not just their relationship, but the entire hip-hop tradition. The world is still fixated on the catastrophe, and Cam is still MIA. What do you think? Is Chrissy the ultimate villain? Or is there more to this story than anybody realizes? Was Jim totally caught off guard? Or were there warning indications that he chose to ignore? Will Cameron ever get sick of being the king of petty spoilers? There's probably nothing certain about this. It's just the beginning. There will likely be more leaks, receipts, and legal drama. You won't want to miss it. Please share your thoughts in the comments section below. Which side are you on? We want to hear it all. Jim, Chrissy, Cameron, and everyone who enjoys dramatic celebrity drama with a dash of sarcasm should hit the subscribe button and like this video. I promise you'll want to be the first to know when the thank you for watching. And until the next time, be messy and skeptical. Keep in mind that in the world of celebrity false news, the tea never stops brewing, and that My Friends is the messy, chaotic, and jaw-dropping story that nobody saw coming. Don't get too comfy, because this story is far from over. We want to hear your wildest speculations in the comments section right now. Jim Jones crushed Chrissy, exposed Cameron, and is smiling like the king of petty he is. Blindsided? Or was he simply disregarding all the warning signs? Is Chrissy playing a high-level survival game? Or is this the ultimate betrayal? Let's face it. Is Cameron merely stirring things up for fun? Or does he have a bigger plan in store? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. If you're as obsessed to celebrity drama as we are, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and ring the notification bell because you don't want to miss anything. The internet detectives are working really hard on this one, upcoming, because I assure you that the tea only in the realm of false news, scandals. The secrets only grow dirtier as it gets hotter, and the drama is constantly simmering, shem me.